going to happen at all in any way, shape, or form. So if I look at kind of my career, and I'm using my slide deck a little bit, but I do want to make this more interactive since it's a short group. Like, one of the things I would want to know is like, why the hell, do I even get to talk about this? Like, why is it important? So I have a 12-year-old son, which you guys have probably all seen me chat about on LinkedIn quite a bit. I have a 21-year-old and an 18-year-old stepson. Most people do not know that. Dan, I don't even know if you know that.
I did not.
So my ex-wife had two kids. I raised them from 3 all the way through, 6 years ago. Coached all of their sports, coached my kids basketball. And like, when you start talking about leadership, we think about leadership just in work life, right? But leadership actually transcends outside of work. It starts with who we are personally, how we carry ourselves, how we conduct ourselves. All of that comes back to what is being a leader. And all of these situations are kind of what have made me, I think, somewhat remotely, maybe a little bit qualified to talk about that difference of manager to leader. I have been I'm going to sound really fucking old, VP of sales 7 times. I don't know if that's good or bad. It's good in the sense of, boy, I have a lot of experience. It's bad in the sense of, boy, can I pick bad fucking companies to go work for? Do we record these, by the way? Because we probably don't want to say that out loud.
I do. I can kill it if you want.
No, dude, I don't care. Please, I'll send it directly to the person I'm thinking of.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking.
Yeah, I don't care. But here's the interesting thing: leading in those shitty companies is harder than leading in those good companies. Because when you're working for a shit company with a founder that is a tyrant, or a product that doesn't do what you say it's going to do, or you're with a company that's having a ton of layoffs, that's when people actually look to you for leadership. Anyone can work for what Gong is and probably was back in the day, for any great tech startup that's doing amazing and like motivate a team, rah rah, like you're all hitting your numbers, everything's great. Anyone could lead that team, right? It's different than leading a team when you haven't closed a deal in 18 months, when your product is Figma, and you don't know it's Figma. It's different leading a team when 30% of people have been laid off. So those lessons from those 7 companies are arguably what taught me how to get better at what I do. So, little fun facts. I've promoted 32 people in my career. Some from individual contributor manager, manager to director, director to senior director. And it is, in my opinion, the definition of being a good leader is how many people you get promoted. Obviously, we all want the number to go up and to the right, but I think getting people, and when I say promoted, I don't just mean into leadership roles, I mean where they want to go. So, case in point, I had someone working for me at, I forget where it was, to be honest with you. She was in sales and she wanted to go to marketing. She was one of my top reps. Her name's Shannon. And it was fucking kill me to lose her off my team, right? Because that's my quota at the end of the day. But marketing is where she wanted to go. And we worked with her and we got her there because I had 2 choices. I could either A, work with her, get her to go where she wants to go, give her those tools, those skills, be her champion, partner with the marketing leadership and get her over there, and keep all of her knowledge, that wealth of knowledge that she has internally. Or B, she's just going to go get a fucking marketing job at another company and we're going to lose all of that. I would much, much, much rather do right by her, backfill her as much as it hurt my team, but keep her in the company. And I think that's a lot of mistake a lot of leaders make is, well, it's going to hurt me. Why am I going to go, have you promoted to marketing or success or wherever? Like, it's all about me and my team. And it's not. It's not about you at all when you're a leader anymore. It's arguably about everyone else. So one of the things that I think is important to recognize, leadership's a choice. It's not a title. Whether you are an AE, a BDR, a CEO, a CRO, whatever it is, you can be a leader without having a title of any kind whatsoever. Some of the best leaders I've known have been AEs. They've been BDRs because they stand up for people. They work to help people. They come up with new ideas, new practices. They lift everyone up around them instead of bringing down everyone around them. So I'm going to stop there for a second because with a small group, I want to ask Natasha. I'm going to pick on you. Best leader you've ever had and why?
Um, she wasn't actually my boss. Does that count?
Yes, that's exactly my point.
Yeah, she and is now a mentor of mine, but she saw me when we were at a trade show actually and just saw how I was interacting with people. And when we got back to the company, that's when she came up to me and she's like, "There's something about you. I want to work with you. Like, let me see how we can like collaborate here together on our own teams." Right? It was amazing.
Yeah, it's a great example, right? A lot of the best leaders we've had aren't our bosses. They aren't people we even work for. They might be people across the aisle. They might be colleagues. They might be peers. Can you have a leader that is, I hate the term under you, but in the proverbial stupid fucking hierarchy that org charts that people like to have? Is it possible to have a leader that's under you? Stephen, I'm going to pick on you for that one.
Yeah, of course. I think you hit the nail on the head. It's just being a good human being, right? Sometimes the best leaders in the companies are, might be the janitor. You never know. It's just good human beings treating other people with respect. That's all it is. It's sad that there's not a lot of people like that out there anymore. But
So I was going to say, how fucking hard is that though? Like we
I think
all could
people
sit
make it
here
a
and
lot harder than they need to.
being a good human being is an incredibly underrated skill that people think is so easy, and it's not. Like number one, like let me tell you, like I have an ex-wife, so like not everyone's a good human. No, she's a good human being. But like I have worked for people that have this outward impression that they're such great people, right? Like, oh, the world's wonderful, and it's not who you're thinking of, Dan. But then you actually work with them, and what you realize on the side is they shit talk people all day, or that persona that they display on LinkedIn isn't who they are in real life. Like, how shitty is that? There's nothing worse than someone, and I could count probably 5 to 10 people. Scott, you could probably count more that on LinkedIn portray this incredible persona of what a nice, helpful, great individual they are. And then you actually spend some time with them and it's like, fuck you. I have nothing to help you with. Like, are you going to pay me? Listen, my time is all that I have. Like, time is money. But I'm also a big believer that the more you give, the more you get. And giving back is important. Now, am I going to give everyone an hour of my time? I mean, I did just offer Stephen an hour of my time, but no, I'm not going to give everyone an hour of my time. But like, what you see is what you get. I'm not going to, go out there and portray that I'm something that I'm not. And a lot of people do that a ton. So, why would anyone want to be a leader in a company? And in this sense, I'm thinking like a leadership role. And the reason I'm asking that is if you think about it, number one, as a leader, your freedom goes out the window, right? You have less freedom. You are at the whim of every single person on your team. You have less job security. That's a fact, right? The number one rep is probably safe most of the time. Leaders, maybe not. Less cash. It's not dependent on you anymore. Your money's dependent on your team. And then this is my favorite. You crush your quota, right? Scott, your team did an amazing job this year, man. Here's your quota increase for next year, dude. Go ahead and 2x that for me if you don't mind. But as an individual rep, it's different. And then the one that I find most top performers who want to move into leadership struggle with is your name's not in the spotlight anymore. And like as that number one rep, and I was that number one rep. Like as number one rep, your name's not in the spotlight. It's all about your team. No one gives a shit about you anymore. But if you can stomach all that, there's some really cool shit that could happen. So there's a few things that I've witnessed personally from people who've moved into leadership roles. Leading a company towards like that one milestone that actually helps get funding and like doubles or triples that stock valuation. Like knowing that you took a part of that is something that's pretty cool. Take that rep that has no experience and see them cash their first 6-figure bonus check. I shit you not, when I worked at Toast, I hired this, he's my best friend in the world right now. But his name's Hank. He had no selling experience whatsoever. Brought him in, coached him, developed him. This guy was a general manager at a restaurant, which is why we hired him. His number one year, he made $68,254. I will never forget that money. Yeah, not a lot of money, right? To manage a restaurant in those hours. He was with us for 2 years, got his first 6-figure commission check, and bought himself a Porsche 911. The look on it, no kids, no wife, but the look on his face when he went out there and bought that car, like knowing that I was the one who gave him that chance, like that's huge. Like that's such a rewarding feeling. Taking someone who is underperforming, who's on a PIP, coaching them, developing them, and then turning them into that P Club rep, like that's pretty fucking cool too. You know, there's the other shit, helping people get promoted, awesome. Friendships, great. You know, forging the next generation of leaders, as people say, all that's great. But to me, it comes down to the people, right? Like, sure, helping a company grow is incredible. I think it's awesome. But building those relationships with people and having someone come back to you and say, hey, Natasha, I was able to do this because of the help you gave me, because of the time you spent with me. That's something that you will take for a long time. We've all had shit managers, right? Has anyone on this call not had a shit manager? Anyone been so lucky? No? Yeah, neither have I.
It's gotta be impossible.
I work for this guy, Scott. Well, no, I'm kidding.
There's plenty of people that would say that I was shit.
I've never not had a shit manager.
No,
Yeah.
I mean, there's that too. But Scott, wouldn't you agree that the best leaders, there'll always be someone who calls them a shit manager because the best leaders challenge people to do things differently, and the people who don't want to be challenged are going to say, well, you're a shitty leader. I'm not a shitty leader. You just have no motivation in life.
Yeah, you know, there's some people, I've had dozens of people who've come back to me years later and essentially say, I wasn't ready for you at the time.
Yeah.
But some of the stuff that you tried to get me to do and teach me was, you know, lessons that I implement now, and I wish I would have paid attention then, and that kind of thing. So
how rewarding is that though? Like for someone to come back and say that, like that's pretty validating.
Pretty validating. You know, it's also a little bit frustrating because you're like, yeah, fucker, I tried to help you 10 years ago and we could have had a different, you know, outcome and whatnot. But yeah, it is validating. You know, you're not going to be everybody's best friend, let alone everybody's cup of tea.
So you just said
you're operating with their best interests in mind, and sometimes that requires pushing people outside of their comfort zone and beyond where they're kind of ready to go in the moment. You know,
100%. But you just said something so important. You're not going to be their best friend. Your job as a leader isn't to be their friend. Your job as a leader is to be their coach. Your job as a leader is to make them better. If you can be friends, that's great. But my job isn't to be your friend. My job is to drive revenue up and to the right. My job is to bring out the best skills in you that I can and to make you better. And if we could be friends, great. If not, that's fantastic too. We're not running a popularity contest. You don't have to like me. I would prefer for you to respect me. I'd prefer for you to like me, but if you don't, that's okay too. Jessica, when I said has anyone not had a shitty manager, your eyes kind of lit up. Without naming names, like what made that manager that immediately popped into your mind a shitty manager?
I think an arrogance mixed with ignorance, that it's kind of coming in from the top, like I'm going to teach you something, I'm going to do this, without really like bothering to get to know people. I've had awesome managers that really cared for me as a professional, like a human, but like professional, and wanted the best for me. And that's the worst, was when it was not that, and just feeling like being like literally having someone scream at you is, shitty.
Like I would be so embarrassed to scream at someone. Like I can't imagine ever exhibiting that behavior. Like forget at a human being. Like I scream at Dale occasionally, but like other than that, for those of you who don't know, Dale's my business partner, and he's on this call, so I have to give him shit. But other than that, like I can't imagine screaming at someone. Like, and if you treat your employees like that, imagine how you like. I don't know. I shudder to think how these people treat their husbands and wives. And like, Dan, you know my wife. Can you imagine if I ever screamed at her? Like, she'd kill me. Um, Jason, shitty manager. What's the shittiest manager you've had?
Well, I took a little bit of time off after a few experiences, but I had a zero to hero discussion about how it was okay. Everybody loves a zero to hero. So just keep plugging away. And then I crushed it the next year, and realized it wasn't worth it because I wasn't doing it to be the hero. And then I left. I guess probably a company that a lot of people want to be at, but yeah, that's what happened.
You know, you said that. It's funny. The company a lot of people want to be at. So there are several companies I can think of off the top of my head, and I won't name names because we are being recorded, that have this great external vision, right? Like they're amazing. Everyone wants to work there. Like this is the company that you want to go be at. And then you find people who actually work there and you hear the stories and it's like, wait a minute. You have a great external image, but holy shit, like I don't want to work there. One I will mention because it's publicly known, like think about Dooley back in the day, right? Like Dooley had this great presence of like, this is amazing. But everyone who worked there was like, we don't know what the hell we're doing. And our people are horrible. But that's where you have the difference between managers and leaders. So one of the things that I say a lot is managers are for factories, right? Like managers will inform you, like they're going to tell you what to do. I'm going to inform you. Scott's the CEO and Scott said we had to do this, so we're going to go do it. That's a manager. Or they're going to direct you. Dan, you will do this because I said so and this is how I get paid. And then they're going to control you. And if you don't do it, I'm going to make your life miserable. No one wants that shit. No one wants to be told to go push a button. No one wants to say, hey, Natasha, go make 50 calls today. Jason, do me a favor. Make sure you send out 150 emails. Oh, you didn't do that? We're going to have a talk. That's a fucking manager. What a leader is going to do is going to inspire you. They're going to motivate you and they're going to share the vision as to why. So when I look at kind of like what's the definition of leadership, it's inspiring others to move in a specific direction, right? At the end of the day, the objectives are the objectives. And I want to get you to do what the senior leadership team, what we have as a group of leaders have agreed upon. But it's very different telling you that you're going to do it because I'm your boss. And yes, I've had someone legitimately tell me, you're going to do this because I'm your boss and your job is to do what I say. Yeah, that doesn't work well for me, by the way. Or someone who's going to talk about the meaning, the direction, the purpose, and the why behind the what, and get people to move in the right direction. All right, so I think you guys heard me say this when we started. That fancy title. Do you, Jessica, do you respect someone because they're a VP of something?
No, it's overused, that title.
Yeah. Well, everyone's a VP. Go to a bank. Everyone's the vice president at a bank. I feel like software Scots get in the same way. Everyone's a vice president.
But you know what? And I'm sorry. I'm going to qualify that
please.
because it's. I started at a new company in April, and I am being conscious of people's titles. So it's. I guess I do have a little reverence for it. You know, I want to make sure that I get the political landscape correct. And like I'm on LinkedIn, or not LinkedIn, but Outlook, when when you type someone in and then you see the reporting structure, because we have like vice presidents of product, and then we have vice presidents of people. And I just want to know who can ultimately fire me. So, or whatever, you know what I mean? So I do have reverence for it a little bit in that case, but then everyone's a regional VP, and really it's just like a sales manager.
So good point. Let me ask it a little deeper. Just because fearing someone, and fear is the wrong word, but wanting to appear right to someone, or wanting to make sure that someone can't influence your career in a negative way, I think is very different than respect. So if you see in my email signature and Outlook that I'm the VP of something, do you respect me, or does that just mean, hey, he has a title, I need to kind of watch what I say because he may be important?
More about that. I want to I'm it's hard for, I'm just a little bit more reserved. So it takes a lot for me to go all in. Well, in terms of trusting people is what I mean.
Yeah.
So okay, we can float around there. You get the basic respect that every human gets, and then you earn and grow that as you go. So that could also be a personal thing that it takes me a bit. And I've been around the block a couple times, so it's like, all right, another VP, okay,
So you're spot on. The fancy title means shit. So I've had 2 jobs where I was hired and I was legit told, pick whatever title you want. Throw it on your LinkedIn, pick your title. We'll support you. Title doesn't mean anything, right? No one's going to follow you. No one's going to respect you. People might do what you say, but no one's going to respect you and believe in you just because you have a title. Respect has to be earned. Leaders are respected. Managers are feared. Very important. I just hit the wrong button on my computer. All right. So let's talk about how to be a leader. We've talked a little bit about the difference, but let's talk about how. So the first thing, and I touched on this a little bit, is it ain't about you anymore. You got to make it about them. So how do you do that? Number one, whether it's big or small, you've got to recognize your people. Not just recognize them, though. You got to recognize them publicly, and you have to recognize them often. Celebrate those wins, call people out for the good stuff, cheer them on, and let people know that you support them. I say all the time, well, I don't say anymore because I have a whopping company of 2. But I used to say all the time that people don't work for me, I work for them. I would actually introduce myself in email. Like if Scott would introduce me to someone, I would be like, hey, my name's Adam and I work for Scott, or I work for the sales team. Because at the end of the day, as a good leader, you do work for your team. Your job is to lift them up. Your job is to make them better. And it's little things like that that make people feel valued. When I build org charts for companies, I'm very cognizant to put myself at the bottom. And it's the exact opposite, right? You're used to seeing that VP of sales at the top. Whoever said that about Lessonly, yes, I saw Kyle Lacey would always say I serve. But I put myself at the bottom. Work that recognition into the culture of your team. When you start a meeting, start with something positive that someone did. No one wants to get on a damn meeting and immediately go into the negative shit, or immediately go into, hey, everyone, happy Monday. Dan, let's talk about your numbers, please. Like talk about shit and get people going. Make people feel like you actually care. Here's a big one, and I shouldn't have to say this, but I do. But please don't take fucking credit for things that other people on your team do. Like, do you know how many managers do that? Like, hey, I'm gonna have Steven put together this great presentation, and Steven, this is a coaching exercise, right? Like, I want to give you some real world experience on what it's gonna be like to like present to the leadership team, and then go into the leadership team and you take the credit for the entire presentation and don't give credit where it's done because you feel that the leadership team needs to think you did that. Give the team the credit. It doesn't make you weak. It shows that you're developing your team. Does that like hand raise mean you want to talk or something?
I think it means he doesn't know how to use the machine yet.
It's the button that you push, Dan. I'm guessing you're agreeing with me. Are you trying to do like a thumbs up or something? We talked about the successes, motivation. And then when you start doing that, when you start calling people out, when you start recognizing the success, what you're going to find is other folks on the team, this Kajabi thing, other folks on the team are going to then strive harder and work harder because they want their name in the spotlight. They want to be recognized in front of their peers, in front of groups. It's almost like, and I might get in trouble for saying this, but it's almost like having kids. When you have multiple kids, like one gets praise and then the other wants to work extra hard so they get dad and mom's love. It's the same thing when you're leading a team, right? People want that praise, so that's something that is important. All right, so I'm gonna tell a story. You got to check your ego at the door. My friends, was an asshole. I was the biggest asshole, and I was told by so many people that I was an asshole. So everyone thinks that because you're the top rep, that you are destined for promotion, right? You're the top rep, so you are destined to be that next manager. Why not? Like, Steven, you got great numbers. Of course, I want you to lead my team. Teach everyone what the hell you're doing, man. So I worked at this company called Hologic, publicly traded healthcare company, largest women's healthcare company in the world. I was in the surgical division. So yes, I looked at hoo-haws all day. True story. I have a very funny story about that I will sidetrack and tell. We were going to career day at school, and my nephew's dad, my brother-in-law, was a firefighter. So I'm taking the kids to school in the car. They're all like, oh, what are you going to say when you go to school? And they're going to be like, my daddy saves all these lives. He's a firefighter and he runs into burning buildings. My stepson steps up. He goes, yeah, my daddy looks at dirty hoo-ha all day long. True story, in school. That was a very unpleasant conversation. So I was the number one rep for 3 years in a row. I applied for a district manager promotion, so frontline manager, to lead a team of 6 and go through the whole interview process, and I don't get the job. I am mind fucked, right? Like, I do not get it. I'm the number one rep. Why in the world am I not getting this job? No one gave me feedback because I was an asshole. Position comes up again in 6 months. Another district manager position comes up. I apply. I go through the whole process. Does anyone think I get the job? Thumbs up, thumbs down. I don't get the job. Can't understand why for the life of me, because I'm still the number one fucking rep, selling more than anyone else. Why don't I get the job? Because I'm an asshole. Thank you, Dan. So finally, I reach out to who was the best leader that I've ever had, Whitney. We're at a national sales meeting. I remember it like it was yesterday. We're in San Diego at the Marriott Marquis. If any of you have ever been there, it is beautiful, right on the water. And she comes up to me and she's like, do you want to know why you didn't get this job? I said, of course. I said, it's because you're an asshole. Well, that's a blunt feedback. Tell me more. If you guys have ever seen my Zoom, I have tell me more behind me at home. And she says to me, you're the number one rep, which is great, but you have to tell everyone you're the number one rep. You always talk about how good you are. You don't share what you do because it's your secret, and you're not willing to help others. No one wants to work for that fucking person. So while you're a great rep and we certainly value you and want to keep you and you'll make a lot of money here, you are not going to be a leader to use the word manager, with that attitude. I remember it vividly, like it was yesterday, and this was 15 years ago. It has fundamentally shaped who I am as a person, as a leader, as a father, because I was like legit was an asshole. I was a know-it-all. Like there was nothing I didn't know. I was cocky as could be, and no one would ever want to work with that kind of person. And let me go back and say that sentence again for anyone who missed it. No one would ever want to work with that kind of person. I'm a big believer that no one works for you. People work with you. So that moment shaped me to my core. It took me 9 months of hard change, of coaching, of therapy. Everyone should get therapy, by the way. Don't ever be afraid to admit that you do therapy. To change who I was. And now it's very much about the team, about making others better, not about me. And I was ultimately able to move into a leadership role. But you have to, nice Dale, you have to make sure that you are not being an asshole. So, as a leader, the most important thing that you can do is share your vision with others. Your job is to motivate people, right? You have to get people, as Whitney said, your job as a leader is to get people to run through a brick wall for you. And no one is going to do that without knowing the why. So it's very easy for me to say, hey, Scott, we need to go sell $100,000 this quarter because Dale, the CEO, God help us if Dale's ever a CEO, Dale, the CEO, said that that is what we need to do. I mean, sure, I can go out there and tell you to do that, and some of you might do it. But does that motivate anyone on this call? No. When you're talking about vision, you're now giving that clear and distinct picture of what the future looks like and the why behind it. Why is this important? Why do we need to hit this goal? What does it mean for the company? What does it mean for you? How can I help you get there? Managers suck at creating vision. Dan must be reading Dale's comments by the look on his face. Managers are going to say things like, well, this is what corporate said we have to do. I don't know. We just need to do what we're told. Or my personal favorite, this came from above my pay grade. That's my favorite cop out of all time. Hey, Scott, we have to do this. Why? Well, it came above my pay grade, man. We just got to do it.
I literally heard that one today from somebody.
Client?
Prospect.
Yeah, above my pay grade. Leaders determine kind of what that North Star is, and they work to get buy-in from the team versus just telling people this is what corporate said. It's that clear, that distinct vision that actually resonates with their team. And what I found is giving the why behind the what, even if you don't like it, is something that's really important. With that said, who on this call knows the difference between your team and your first team? Has anyone heard that before? Team and first team? Scott,
yeah.
You're excluded. So there is a great book called 5 Dysfunctions of a Team. And it is all about how you need to get teams to really come together and align and share the why. But there's a concept of your team and your first team. And the hardest part for me as I moved into leadership was distinguishing the difference. So your team is those who work for you, right? Those who are on your team, who you directly manage or oversee. There is some a-hole next to me talking on speakerphone, and it's making it very hard to do this because speakerphone should be allowed at a big giant convention center in Vegas. I'm going to hell. That's your team. Your first team is your leadership team. So think your other managers, your senior leadership team, those who are steering the company. And as you're making decisions as a leader and as you're rolling things out and as you are advocating for those on your team, you have to remember that your number one responsibility is to that first team. It's to your company. Where does this come up a lot? Think about comp plans. You know, if you're a manager and you're helping to develop comp plans, you're a newly promoted manager. It is so, there's a lot of instinct to want to make that comp plan as favorable as you possibly can to your reps, right? Like, I was a rep, I get it. I want to take care of everyone. There's a balance between taking care of everyone and also your fiduciary responsibility to the company, and making sure that you're looking at first team in addition to your regular team. And that's hard. That took me years. I'd argue that I still don't do it because I don't ever put Dale first. I put everyone else first. So it's not always about that, but you've got to focus on what the first team looks like. And what that requires is a deep understanding of how to communicate up, down, and sideways. Does everyone know what that means? Anyone who doesn't, thumbs down if you don't. Up, down, and sideways? Yes? Cool. So communication's an art. Most people suck at it, honestly. I sucked at it for a long time. But I think it's really important when you're communicating to, number one, meet people where they are. A lot of people, a lot of managers will, I had a manager who would send Slack messages at 6 o'clock in the morning and think nothing of it, and then get upset when they didn't get a response by 6:30. Other managers would send shit at 6:45 at night and get upset. Sometimes Slack, sometimes email, sometimes text. Meet people where they are. We all have our preferences, but if you have a senior leader who you work with who prefers email communication and wants a long summary, meet them where they are. Find a way to make that happen. Conversely, if someone on your team hates to talk on Slack but wants to talk on the phone, pick up the phone. It's a really underrated skill. But also remember that the method of communication that you use when you're communicating with your team carries a shit ton of weight. So think about this. We are having a fundamental problem in the business, and I need everyone to step up and do some extra work and go above and beyond. I could send that out in a Slack message and tell you all that this is what I need you to do. Or I could have a Zoom, explain this to you, and tell you the why. Which one's going to go over better? Probably the Zoom. Don't send shit over Slack. Don't send negative shit over Slack. Slack is awesome for quick updates, right? I need this, I need that. When Scott was doing some fractional work for a company we worked for, hey, this is done, take a look at it. Like, that's great for Slack. Don't get in a back and forth debate with someone over Slack. When Scott would beat up all the shit I would send him and tell him I was doing a shitty job, he wouldn't send me a Slack message telling me that my ICP outline sucked. He would at least have the courtesy to get on a Zoom and tell me my outline sucked. But it made it easier, right? You could tell a lot by people's facial expression, people's tone of voice. When you send shit in Slack, people tend to misread the tonality that they're not able to see. So use that personal time. When you're managing up, which is my belief, so you're managing like to your leaders, is the single most important part of your communication. You got to pay attention to how you do that. The higher up you go, the more important it becomes. Does anyone think that when you're a CEO that you don't manage up anymore? Who do you manage up to when you're a CEO? Yep, you said it. The board. You're always managing up. When you're in the group with those executives, you need to find a way to arguably be an equal. It's executive presence, for lack of better terms. Like, you got to hold your own, right? No one wants to have a leader in a room who is standing there and like quivering, like, I'm scared because I have to talk to the board. Like, they all put their pants on the same way y'all do. They are people just like y'all are. Whether it's the CEO of your company, whether it's your district manager, whether it's your regional manager, your RVP, everyone is a human being, and everyone started somewhere. Everyone started barring the, you know, friend of the brother or of the sister of the son of the board member who just got brought in as like the regional vice president, most people started as individual contributors. So they're going to recognize where you're coming from. But when you're managing up, it's not just about kind of reporting the data. It's about building your credibility. It's about influencing decisions. It's about securing resources for your team. You have to be able to articulate your needs and your challenges to upper management in a way that aligns with the org's objectives so that you get what you want. What is the single way you think that you could do that? What's the single way that you think you could articulate your needs and get the support that you need? Guesses? Anyone? I could pick on someone. I'll make it super interactive. Connor, what's up, man?
Howdy, late joiner, but so far so good. I like all the
good, man.
The Scott being mean to people. Always fun. I'm gonna go with Steven's answer. Ask. That's the number one way.
Ask. Okay. I'm not watching the chat. So asking's important. Use data. When you are managing up, you gotta use data, because the first thing you're going to be asked is, well, how? Why? What do you mean? Where's the proof? Come with that data. Come with that information to shows that you've done your homework when you're managing up and trying to get resources, because the first thing you're going to be asked for is that backup data. So bring it in advance. Also, don't be the person that when your leadership asks you to try something or do something because you're a new leader, and I'm telling you this because I made this mistake, that won't work, Scott. Not a good look. What do you mean that won't work? Well, we've tried it. It won't work. Listen, if you've tried something and it's not going to work, there's a different way to say that won't work versus that won't work. Have we thought about doing this? The data has shown that we've actually tried that, and these were the results we've got. But why don't we try this instead? If you're going to say something isn't going to work, or you're not going to do something, or you can't do something, it's really important that you have an alternative solution that you're able to present. Do not be the person that comes in and just says it's not going to work. Make sure that you over communicate. You'll find that when you're managing up, typically leaders, C-suite, they want more detail versus less detail. So I would urge you to over communicate versus under communicate. And document. Frameworks and playbooks will be your best friends. Whether you're an individual contributor or whether you're a leader, whether you're a CEO, start documenting. And I know Scott and Ryan have preached this, but document everything that you do, because you could take that with you to everywhere that you go. But even more importantly, when you are managing up, show how you built things together and how you put things together. That's what's going to get you your credibility. And then I think I already touched on this, but don't present problems without solutions. There's a reason you're a leader, right? There's a reason that you were chosen to be a leader, or there's a reason that you're a leader without title. If I'm going to go to my CEO, Scott, and tell him that we are not generating enough pipeline to meet our Q4 OKRs, that's a very different, now I'm going to phrase this two different ways and think about this. Hey, Scott, great check-in. I just want to give you a heads up, man. We're not going to, hit our Q4 OKRs for pipeline. We're just going to miss. It's very different than going to Scott and saying, hey, man, like, we're having some struggles. I want to give you a heads up. It looks like we're probably going to miss our Q4 pipeline. This is what I'm seeing. Here are some of the things we're doing to try to avoid that and make sure that we get as close to that number as possible. It's a very different conversation, right? Very different to say we're just going to miss versus we're going to miss, but here's some of the solutions I'm trying to put into play to avoid missing. Come with solutions when you come with a problem. Bring them to the table. And then the last thing on managing up is the devil's in the details. Know your shit. Do not make a statement that you cannot back up with data. I have done it. I have been called on the floor in the middle of a boardroom where I said something, I didn't have the data, and I was flat out wrong. And I doubled down on it to make it even worse. And I was wrong. It is okay to say, I don't know, I'm not sure, I need to check. But if you do not know, do not spit it out of your mouth. Because when you lose that credibility once, when you double down on it once and you're wrong because you don't know your shit, every time you're asked a question now, you're going to be questioned about, well, do you really know or are you just guessing? All right, we only have a few minutes, and I went off topic with my slide deck. So I want to touch on just a few more things, and I'll send this deck out to y'all afterwards. And there's a couple other things I'll send out, but EQ, emotional intelligence, and empathy, I think are really, really, really important skills for leaders. You have to be able to put yourself in the shoes of others and not forget where you came from. I think that a lot of people move up in the world and it's like suddenly I'm this like big shot and I forget what it's like to be an individual contributor or to not be in leadership. You want to make sure that you are able to read a room, that you're able to read people, that you're able to understand where people come from and people's perspective. And you also want to make sure that as you're thinking and planning, you understand the difference between kind of that short term and long term, right? When you're a leader, that long term vision is something that's really important. You have to think about what the future is going to look like, and help to shape that vision. That's why you're a leader. That strategic thinking versus that immediate thinking is something that's really important. Questions, comments, thoughts? I rambled because we only had a few people.
One important point about, I think, about the bring solutions, not just problems, Adam, is the difference between doing that proactively and reactively. Reactively meaning you're aware that there's an issue, you kind of say nothing about it, and you wait till somebody points it out, and then you respond with the problem and a solution, versus proactively getting ahead of it before being asked about it. So before somebody comes to you and says, hey, what's the story with this low pipeline? You come in advance and you're like, we've got low pipeline. Here's why. Here's what we're doing about it. Here's the data to support why I think this is going to fix it. Just wanted you to be aware. Can you riff a little bit on this difference between being proactive with it and reactive?
Yeah, I mean, to me, when I'm working with folks on my team, I would much rather have someone come to me and give me a heads up that something's wrong or something's going wrong or something's going to be wrong or that there's a red flag, before I find it on my own, and have them come to me with solutions before I find it on my own. It shows that you know your shit. It shows that you know your business. It shows that you're on top of it and that you are working to solve the problem. Anyone can go find solutions after I tell you there's something wrong. Like it's really easy for me to say, "Hey Scott, like I recognize that the numbers are down." Well, great, great, great. You know, Adam, that's awesome. I'm gonna go figure out what it is. Like the reason that you are in the seat you're in is to proactively find these things. It's to uncover them and look at how you're gonna grow the business and help the team solve their problems. It's all, a lot of it also comes in the approach, you know, especially when you're managing down, so to speak. If you have a rep who's missing their numbers, it's very different for me to go, hey Connor, man, you're missing your numbers, and you know you're gonna miss your quota, and that means I'm gonna miss my quota, and I'm not gonna get paid, and like no one wants that. What people are open to is what people are open to is, hey Connor, I was looking through the numbers last week and it looks like you're slightly off track to hit your, you know, whatever revenue goal. I'd love to find some time where we could sit down and I could actually dig in and help you hit that, and understand where you're struggling or where there might be a gap so that I can partner with you. That's very different than telling you you have a problem and go fucking fix it. Sold. Let's do this. I love it. We'll go fix it. All right. So my gift to all of you all, and Scott, it's up to you if you want to make this available for the entire community or just those who decided to show up. Dale and I have a 30 some odd page guide on making the transition from manager to leader. It looks at both doing it from you've been promoted and you're now a manager and you have to be a leader, to like leading outside of having a title. That is free for all y'all. I will get that to you probably Thursday because I need to do a couple things to get that done. But that is my gift. I am not going to try to upsell you anything from that. I should. My funnel guy would tell me that I'm not doing a good job. But that is my gift to all y'all. The other thing that I'm willing to do, and this one is only for those on this call, is I am willing to give each of you 30 minutes of one-on-one time. It might not be in the next week or so, but sometime over the next month. 30 minutes one-on-one to chat over anything that you would like. I might try to upsell you from that one. But 30 minutes of free time to everyone except Dan. Happy to chat with y'all.
I think it's a great offer, and I think the 30-page guide, that's going to be killer for people. So
the guide's good. The 30 minutes, I'm just going to use Dale's calendar, and we're going to stack them back. We're going to stack them back to back to back.
Yeah, that's what I do with Ryan, and that's what I do with Richard as well. Yeah. That's the move.
Give me Richard's calendar link. That would be awesome.
That'd be great. Yeah.
I will also I'll share the deck that I was going to use for this call, since I decided to wing it. And if you all have questions, you know where to find me. But I'm glad you all came and hung out a little bit.
Yeah, thanks so much, man. We appreciate it, and have fun in Vegas.